Hi, everyone. This is Avery Peel, host of the Hope Matrix on Campus podcast. We are here to share the science, strategies, and stories for how to hope. I am the Community Hope Specialist at the Shine Hope Company, and Shine is the mnemonic for how we teach hope. So when we talk about hope, we talk about the stress skills, happiness habits, inspired actions, nourishing networks, and eliminating challenges, which are the thinking patterns that get in the way of our ability to hope. Hope is a skill. You can measure hope, you can teach hope, and you can start practicing skills to activate higher hope in your life today. And on this Hope Matrix on Campus podcast, we aim to bring in guests, experts in science, people with stories, and those that have strategies for activating hope in your life. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Hope Matrix on Campus. I'm your host, Avery Peel, and today I have with me Miss Skye Jackson. She is a student at Brown University. Hi, Skye.
Hi.
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. As Avery said, my name is Skye. I'm a senior at Brown. I'm from Chicago, and yeah, I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, Shy actually works with us at the Shine Hope Company, and she is amazing. She's helping with a bunch of website stuff and making everything prettier and neater and cleaner for everybody to access our materials better and easier. So, let's start talking a little bit about the challenge you went through in college. And I understand that college is a struggle for everybody, and it is so hard to just kind of like figure out your path. So, what is the challenge that you went through in college?
I mean, challenges come up in college every day, all day. I think there's like little challenges. There's the 2 week slump. There's something you have to work through over a couple months with an external source or a therapist or whatever. And those definitely ebb and flow throughout your time at college. It's such a critical developmental year. So it's really important to just always kind of in the back of your mind or have a toolbox ready to go whenever you do face a challenge, whether it's something big or small. And so I think there's never been, I mean, I haven't experienced like one ginormous challenge. I've definitely had things that were up and down, and just general like feeling overwhelmed or needing like I need to, get a gather or handle on my life more. And that's always something that comes up when you're balancing and juggling as many things as you are in college.
Absolutely. And I feel like this is just a more general, like, not everybody has just one big event that happens in their life. And not everybody has just like one trauma that leads to so many other problems. Like, it just is it's little tiny things that just kind of like build up throughout your time at college. And
Totally.
it is such a hard time because you're like trying to figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life. And your major depends on what you're interested in, but it also depends on what kind of job you want to get after school. And then if you're paying for your own school or and trying to work a separate job, or if you just want to have some extra money and have to work a job in school. And working in school is hard too.
Totally, it's so hard. Yeah.
Absolutely. Juggling all of the things throughout college is so difficult. You're trying to figure out who you are, you're trying to make new friends, trying to pass your classes, so many things at once. And it is difficult to just get through all of it and figure out your path.
Yeah.
So,
Really.
yeah. So, what are some of the things in college that you're trying to juggle right now?
I mean, oh my gosh, so I have a nonprofit that I just launched, which is really exciting. So that was like behind the scenes work for a couple years, and then when it became public facing, that was more challenging because then that comes into social media and upkeep and kind of a different style of management that I wasn't necessarily like prepared for, and then it happened, which is exciting, but also just took a different kind of like maneuvering that I needed to sort alongside classes, the Shine Hope Company job, which I love, but it is challenging, obviously, having an extra 10 hours a week of work. And I think balancing, like, domestic life, like cooking, cleaning,
Yes.
hosting, having friends over, that's really hard, all at once, and also just leading a healthy lifestyle, so exercising and making sure you're, like, fueling your body in the right way, and all of those things combined, and then having things to look forward to, like travel and family, and so it's honestly just about, like, trying to balance yourself holistically while not getting too sucked up into work, but also supporting yourself and, being involved in classes, being involved on campus, learning when to take a step back and put some more effort into some type of category, and that definitely ebbs and flows.
Definitely. I mean, I feel like every college student is like, when do I have time to exercise when I literally
Yeah.
have so many things going on every single day?
Yeah, totally. No, it's hard. I definitely try to exercise, like, the majority of the week, but it's something where I'm like, "Okay, this is" I, like, have the intention to do it, but it's definitely an intentional act for sure.
Absolutely. You have to, like, literally sometimes force yourself to get out of bed to do it,
Yeah.
which is hard, especially because college is so tiring. And when you're trying to, like, do all these social engagements and go to your classes and do your homework and pass your exams and all that kind of stuff, and then you're trying to find time and extra energy to put into actually working out and doing something for yourself, it's hard.
Yeah, completely.
I think even finding time to, like, have a self-care night is hard.
Yeah. No, it's important for sure, and it's just you get tired at the end of the day, and everyone also is different, like, my peak kind of awareness is, like or awakeness is in the morning, and then some of my friends, it's at night, and so it's hard to balance, like, everyone's kind of on their own schedules.
Definitely. And I feel like, I mean, just since graduating college, it's like everybody's working 8 to 5. So you have to be ready to go at night. And I'm like you, like whenever 5 o'clock hits, I'm like ready to lay down, ready to watch some TV. I don't really want to do anything. And I'm like trying to figure out what I need to cook for dinner, what groceries do I need to get, and all this stuff. And so I totally get that. In that way, it almost was like college was a little bit easier because I could do those things throughout the day and I wasn't, like, physically working all day long.
Totally. Yeah, that's I'm actually not excited about that part of life. I'm quite nervous.
I know, and everybody's like, "Oh, well, you just have to get up at, like, 5 a.m. and go exercise before work," and I'm like, "When do you sleep?"
Yeah, totally, totally. Yeah, it's a completely different lifestyle. I do think that people take college for granted. Obviously, it's challenging because it's like, developmental years, I think, are always really hard, especially when you come in as a teenager and you leave, like, in your 20s, and that's a really interesting, progression, but in terms of actually, like, how much time of the day we are like, required to be somewhere, like, that's up for debate. Like, I don't know what I'm required I guess class is a requirement, but other than that, I don't really know, so everything else is kind of, like, up to me.
Yeah, and that's I mean, but that flexibility can be hard too because that
Yeah.
means you also have to have so much accountability for yourself and really prioritize what you need to get done every day, and every day your priorities are different.
Yeah, completely.
College is a hard time, but it's also, like, one of the most important times to make sure that you're having fun and enjoying your life. Because as soon as you graduate, it's work, work, work.
Yeah, that's what it seems like will happen.
No. I wish I could have been one of those people who, like, graduates college and just leaves the country for, like, a couple years and just travels.
Yeah, I know, those people seem to have the right idea.
But at the same time, like, I don't know how you do it because I don't know. I personally wouldn't be comfortable leaving my family and my home for
Mhm.
years on end, but
Yeah, it's hard, it's cultural differences also. I think, like,
true.
Southern lifestyle, because my mom moved to North Carolina, is such a different lifestyle than, like, me in the Midwest in Chicago or my friends from New York, it's, like, different.
Absolutely. Definitely. So let's start talking about some of the stress skills that you use throughout college, just because, I mean, trying to juggle all of these things is hard and you're bound to get stressed out. And a little bit of stress is good. And doctors actually recommend stress just because
it acts as a motivator for you. And so without stress, you're essentially unmotivated, but too much stress can be really bad and lead you to an allostatic load, and then you just shut down completely. So, what are some of the stress skills that you used throughout college that helped you in these moments?
What are Give me an example of a stress skill that maybe you've used, and then I'll kind of be able to know what mine are.
Yeah, so some stress skills that I used in college would include like going on a walk with a friend or doing yoga, doing some journaling.
Okay, good. Yeah, I mean, my stress goals are definitely exercise. I think on a run, I love running. I love the gym like when it's winter time, but when it's not the winter time, that I love to just start running again. I love taking exercise classes, which are really fun. Um, Cooking as well. Like I think doing things with my hands where I don't need to use like so much of my brain, but I'm using like my body mostly is really nice. Um, and then I think also alone time, like prioritizing alone time, just like chilling on the couch with no regrets. That's also nice.
Absolutely. Maybe doing some like breathing exercises, taking some time
Totally.
for yourself.
Totally. Yeah.
Oh,
And I can say like I don't feel like I typically get super stressed out. I would say I'm more so like get decision fatigue, which I guess is like like what happens when you are so stressed, but it doesn't feel like it's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm stressed in my body." It's more so like, "Oh, I, like, just can't." I, like, shut down. I'm like, "I need to take a break."
right. And maybe that is a perfect time to do like a happiness habit.
Yes.
And so quickly moving on from stress skills, but a lot of the stress skills that you mentioned can also be happiness habits. And your happiness habits are basically the things that keep you in your upstairs brain, which is where your critical thinking happens, where you can make important decisions. It's basically your frontal lobe, and that's the part of your brain where you make all of your important decisions. And that's where you can have logical thinking. So, like whenever you're in your stress response, which usually lasts about 90 seconds, you have this like overwhelming amount of hormones just flooding your brain. So when you get triggered, your hormones flood your brain and you're in your downstairs brain. You can't think straight. So that's why we say to do the 90-second pause. And then a happiness habit can get you out of your downstairs brain. It can get you back into your logical thinking. And so happiness habit can also be exercising or doing a workout class with friends and just being able to like socialize while getting some exercise or being outside and getting some vitamin D, like going on a run. So, what are some happiness habits that you use during that time? And it can be the same as your stress skills.
Yeah, I mean, I think happiness habits definitely more so come into me being social and being excited about being social and like, preparing for it and making sure I'm showing up in a way that I like want to be. And I think that comes in once I'm not as stressed out anymore. And I also think that like I would say, yeah, I mean, I think that with, like, my stress goals, it's the things that's, like, I'm not really I don't really have to think, I'm not really using my brain, but the happiness habits might be like, "Oh, I'm gonna bake something instead of, like, cook chicken," that's, like, an essential food versus, like, something, like, exciting and more fun that I can share with friends. Um and yeah, I also think, like, exploring, like, I think having the capacity to explore is really exciting and, like, whether it's going, to some thrift stores or, just having, like, the space and the excitement to try new restaurants and try new things rather than just doing what's, like, comfortable and familiar because you feel like you don't have any other options.
Definitely. I bet thrifting is such a good happiness habit.
Mhm.
I need to do that more. And I bet there are so many good thrift stores in Rhode Island.
Yeah.
That's so fun. So do you go with friends or do you spend like take this time as like some alone time?
It's both, honestly, I love both. I think it's nice to go with friends because you can, like, try things on together, but also, like, if no one's available, I don't mind, like, going alone, so I honestly don't mind doing anything alone, but it is always nice to have a friend, especially, like, when you're trying a new restaurant, I'd prefer to go with people.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because then it's like, oh, am I gonna go sit at this table by myself or am I just gonna get
Totally.
sushi out?
Yeah, totally.
And takeout's just never as good.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
So it's not the same.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of your inspired actions. And these are things that basically just, these are goals that you set. And these are ways that you, or actions that you take to reach your goals. And so these goals can be anything from like being less stressed out to trying to avoid getting decision fatigue. Or it can be like this big overarching goal that's like, this is what I want to do after I graduate college. So this is all of the things that I need to do while I'm in college to help me get to that point later on. So it can be micro goals. You can re-goal if you need to, because of course, having a huge goal is just sometimes really hard to reach. And sometimes you just have to re-goal to find a goal that's maybe more available at this time for you so that you feel like you're at least accomplishing something right now.
Yeah. I mean, I love goals. I definitely think it's something where sometimes I'm like, first of all, like a maniac planner. So when I plan my days, like it's quite intense. Like I have everything set out and I know what I need to do, and I'm okay with change, especially like in the moment if someone's like, "Oh, this meeting's canceled." I'm like, "Perfect. I have an hour." And it's better for me that way, but so it's not like I don't like when things change, but I think that I do like to plan things. One thing about planning or kind of goal setting in the, short term or long term, I do think it doesn't necessarily give room for like the beauty of life that you just will never expect and you have no idea how things are actually going to go. And so I do try to set goals, but also realize like there's a little bit of detachment in there and not being so attached to kind of an idea of like what's going to happen. I do think that when you're going to go into a situation that maybe isn't going to be permanent, it's also okay to say like, okay, I know that this is, like, gonna lead me to my next step. I don't know exactly what my next step is gonna be, and that can be just, like, important perspective that you need to keep with you. So, I always try to keep perspective, when I'm kind of creating new goals and yeah, but I'm gearing up to move to LA, so I'm doing my best to kind of think about, like, "Okay, how do I build community in a new city when I know, like, less than 5 people?" Um,
Mhm.
and so that'll be really interesting, and so I've been thinking about, like, what do I need in my life? What has worked in college? What hasn't worked in college? What do I want more of? What do I want less of? Um, and just, like, keeping those, ideas in the back of my brain versus, like, being like, "Okay, my goal is to have 30 friends by the first 6 months I lived there, because that's just you just don't know how it's gonna happen, you don't know
Right.
where life is gonna go, but I do think, like, okay, goal is to try to build somewhat of a community there, whether it's, like, I'm going to a book club or some exercise thing or a run club or whatever it is, just, like, try to put myself out there, so I prefer more action-based goals than kind of goals that feel, like, kinda far-fetched or don't leave room for, like, what could happen that I just won't be able to expect.
Absolutely. I feel like that is so, I mean, I feel like you're so intuitive. Like, I mean, that is just an amazing thing to do when you're setting goals, is to be a little bit detached from them to where if you know, like, okay, well, that necessarily didn't necessarily work out how I thought it was going to, but it's okay because it didn't have to. It's still something that I can reach later on. And I mean, I get making goals around making friends is so hard. It's just difficult because ultimately, a friendship is a two-way street, and so you make
Totally.
goals for yourself in that realm, but that also means that that other person has to want to make a friend too. That
Totally.
person has to give that pullback.
Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah, and that's hard also is just kind of, like, let go of, like, the expectations of what you think your senior year would be or what you think your new life is gonna be somewhere, and the point is you just don't know what it's gonna be, and I definitely think, like, having hard times, especially, like, in college is kind of great because then it really teaches you a lot about what you want your life going forward to look like or how you're gonna manage things again in the future, and, like, you're in a microcosm that can teach you a lot about how the real world actually works.
Absolutely. And I feel like so many college students go into their senior year and they're like, this is what I'm going to do after college. This is how it's going to be. And they think that they have it all planned out. They think they're going to have the life that they want and expect. And nothing is as expected.
No,
And
yeah,
you
completely.
might get the job that you want. You might get into the grad school you want, but there are so many unknowns even with that. It's like I was completely unprepared for the fact that all of my friends left town when I graduated.
Yeah.
I was like, "I have no friends anymore." Where, like, I just spent 4 years, like, forming these relationships and trying to meet new people and make new friends, and then they all left. And I was like,
Yeah. No, Brown has, like, a couple post-grad programs, and my freshman year roommate just decided to stay here for another 4 years and, like, work in the Providence Public School District, and I'm like, "Are you prepared the fact that, like, you're not gonna recognize anyone on campus?" And she's like, "I need to get more," because 'cause I've had friends who graduated and were in some other medical school program or whatever and just know, like, 10 people instead of 2,000, and it's really disorienting and traumatic, honestly. I think it's hard, so
it
I
is.
yeah, it's hard.
Absolutely. I stayed in my college town after graduating, and I'm the only person out of my entire friend group that stayed.
Yeah,
And so I totally get what you're saying. I was completely unprepared for that. And honestly, it's harder to make friends when you're not immersed in college anymore because you don't have all of these events and functions and sororities and fraternities and ASG. Like, we don't have that anymore. You're just
totally.
working now. And so it's like, how do I meet people? And I really appreciate that you talked about like the different ways that you can join a community whenever you leave Rhode Island because I mean, finding your community is so important. And
Yeah,
that leads us right into nourishing networks. And I want to get into who your nourishing networks were or are in college right now. But I do think it's so important that you're already thinking about the community that you want to create when you move. Because, like, joining those workout classes, joining a run club, joining a book club, like, finding those things that you're interested in and then finding those people who have the common interest is so important when you leave college.
totally, yeah. I mean, my networks now, like, definitely ebb and flow. I think I was kind of grateful that I went to boarding school, and so I understood what it was like to really, like, have pockets of alone time and also just, like, managing kind of social scenes and having somewhat of an understanding of, like, how micro orbits work within a school that you're living at and how messy it can be and whatever, so I really stayed out of it, and also I don't drink at or do drugs at all, it's just, like, a personal choice that I've always had since I was, like, I don't know, 15 when people started drinking, and I just, like, was never really interested, and I was like, "Maybe it'll change." It's not. I'm 21, it hasn't changed. So, that, that means that, like, when my friends are raving at 2 in the morning, I'm going really downhill and they're going uphill. It's like
Yeah.
that disconnect is kinda funny. Um, but we make it work, and I think I have, like, a variety of friends that are like some of my friends, we go to church together. Some of my friends, we like to exercise or go on walks together. Some of my friends, like, I'll go to their parties and they're DJing and, like, it's super fun and we're out till 3 a.m. and, like, just being open to different types of people and not being so stuck on, like, "Oh, I need to be friends with, like, this type of person," or whatever. Also, like, they need to be wearing this or they need to be doing this or, like, they like, I think it's my biggest pet peeve is, like, when people think that, like, the people around you affect, like, your personal image or something. I think that's the weirdest thing ever. And so it's honestly strange. So, it's important to me just to have people that come from different backgrounds, different walks of life that I can learn from, and that they can learn something from me and, like, we have emotional depth and, that has meant that I'm not in a friend group, which is kind of, like, sometimes feels disorienting when I'm in, like, a trio, with 2 people, which are great since freshman year, and that hasn't wavered or anything, but it's totally a different experience, like, seeing some of my other friends who I'm really, really close to single-handedly, but then they have, like, a group of 6 or 7 that they're kind of, like, always with or planning spring break with, and so just, again, like, letting some of those, like, expectations go and be like, "Okay, what is more important to me? Is it more important for me to have that kind of, like, very strong emotional relationships with individuals, or is it more important for me to, like, have fun and kind of be in these, like, big group settings?" And I think in college, I really prioritize the individual emotional depth, and when I start to move to a new place, I'm excited to try to find, like, a better balance, and so I do have the option to, like, do both. But again, like, you come to college and you're 18, you're still a child, and you leave and you're like, "Oh, like,
Yeah.
I've progressed and I've changed so much," and, like, the things I would do when I was 18, I just do differently now, which is exciting, and I think it's great to, like, have a place where you can learn and grow and, um, people change and you change and, like, let those things happen, over time, but and then I talk to my parents every day on the phone. I think since I went to boarding school, like, talking to them on the phone is really important for me and, like, being able to, like, have those, like, vocal touch points was something that, like, we just kind of developed as a habit, and it's, like, sometimes, like, I'll call my dad 4 times in a row, and he just won't answer, and, like and they'll call me later that night, but, like, it's just kind of a thing that we do. Actually, he's calling me right now.
Oh my gosh.
I answer. "Hey, dad."
Hey, Skye, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm on the Shine Hope Company podcast with Avery Peel right now, and we were just talking about nourishing networks, and I said I call my parents 4 times a day, and my dad called him 4 times a day yesterday, and he didn't answer, and he called me at night, and it's back and forth all day long, but we love each other. Avery can hear you. Do you wanna say anything to the about nourishing networks with your parents?
Think keeping in touch daily with your network is really, really important because we need to be satisfied with the daily bread the Bible teaches us. So, to the extent possible, keep those that will pay off in the long run and short every day.
Yep, I agree. As much as you might get annoyed sometimes.
You'll call me just to say you love me.
That's how all parents feel. You're not unique in that.
Need every day, every person.
Love you, bye. Bye. Anyway, so there you go.
Oh, that was so sweet.
Yeah. So, yeah, we talk every day, which is nice. So that helps a lot. And yeah, it's important I feel like for me to communicate with my friends, but I am lucky in the sense that like I can have a phone call with someone and feel like okay, we connected. I have so many friends who like they feel like over the phone or whatever doesn't work for them in the same way and like for me, I think
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
boarding school, it like I was able to like talk to people from afar on the phone and feel like I'm, happy that we got to connect in some way.
Absolutely. And just having phones is just such a blessing because we have a way to communicate with people who are far away from us now that people didn't used to have. And that's something that we take for granted. And I feel like
Totally.
we should be very appreciative of all of the different forms of communication that we have and the ways that we can Zoom and like I got to know you over Zoom and I feel like we know each other pretty
Totally.
well.
Yeah.
So that's just like something that's so beneficial to us. And you brought up a interesting point, which I kind of want to discuss a little bit because I feel like growing up, everybody always said like you are who you surround yourself with.
Mhm.
And so I want to hear a little bit more on your point of view on that because I agree with what you're saying. And I agree, like, you are your own person. You can get to know all these people individually with
Yeah.
being them. So what's your point of view on that?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up always, particularly with my dad, having such different types of friends from so many different walks of life. Like his childhood friends are so much different than his business friends or the friends that he met over time or throughout his life or when he was traveling or wherever it may be, and so he was always very able to connect with so many different types of people and would always become friends with, the waiters at the restaurants we'd go to every week, and, like, those turned into his friends and, like, family and, like, always finding people all throughout everywhere no matter where they came from or who they were, and, like, I think that there's, like, a line there because I know with my friends, like, the people who I meet, there's kind of that same, like, moral understanding of, like, we're also, like, very open people and we like different types of people and want to explore and, like, whatever, and so as long as there's that, like, same level of, like, kindness um, and openness and caring and empathy, I think then I can, like, be friends with a lot of different people, but I do think that in college particularly, like, some people feel like their life is all about optics, so it's all about, like, where they're getting invited to, who they're hanging out with, and, for me, I kind of just had to let that go and be like, "Okay, you know what? I, like, love doing this thing with this friend, and my other friends will either know about it or they won't, or, like, it's just building those, like, single relationships with people makes such a big difference in my life, and, like, being able to have the capacity to, like, have conversations with people and, like, in-depth conversations, as I said, and that really comes into being open to different people from walks of life, and, like, the beauty of college as well is that, like, college campuses are so diverse. People are coming from all over the world to this one hub, and I think to not take advantage of that um, is something I, like, wouldn't pass up, and so I'm grateful that, like, I did and was excited to, like, learn about people and hear their stories and hear where they came from, and that's, like, really important to me, and I don't care if it looks like I wouldn't be friends with someone or if it does look like I would be friends with someone. It doesn't really matter, like, what other people think. It matters more so, like, "Okay, do we have fun? Are you nice? Are you sweet? Are you kind? And do we, like, have interesting things to say to each other?"
Absolutely. I think that that is an amazing way to go about life, an amazing way to think because I agree. So many people are so concerned with how they look. And like growing up, my dad also had a bunch of different types of friends, but he also told me that first impressions are everything.
Yeah,
So it was just that point where I was like, okay, well, I'm with this person, but I just met somebody. How are they going to judge me based off who I'm hanging out with?
totally. Yeah, I mean, I think it's sorry, continue.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think that that's the way that it should be. And I don't think that I should be judged off of a single first impression because I also think that first impressions can go so wrong.
Totally.
And you never know like where you're going to run into somebody that you might meet. And I mean, what if you're stressed out? What if you're like confused about something else? And what if your mind just isn't in that moment? You can't really show somebody every part of your personality in one first meeting.
Completely. Yeah, and I think just being, like, honest and being nice and being like, "Listen, I'm having a bad day," or "Sorry you caught me at a weird time," or, like, following up with people I feel like is totally fine, and, like, also just not overthinking things. Like, people should give each other grace, and I think most of the time people are more so concerned about themselves than they are about other people anyway, so they're probably not even noticing. But yeah, no, I completely agree that I think first impressions are just, like, not a good basis for and also friendships in your 20s, particularly, I've noticed, like, people that you thought, "Okay, I'm gonna be friends with this person for 10 years," like, things change, and I think
Absolutely.
that's really important to also get used to is, like, you can be friends with someone for 3 years and, like, something kind of happens and you take a 6-month break and you come back together, or you just kind of, like, go your different pathways, and that's unfortunately really normal, and, like, it doesn't need to be, like, love lost, and there can be still, like, respect there, but it's kind of something where, like, closeness really ebbs and flows, and that's why it's so important for me to, like, have a routine where I can be alone and, like, spend my alone time and, like, be happy alone because some days, like, some of my friends might not be free and, like, everyone's kind of ebbing and flowing and doing their own thing, and that's so normal, and, like, you have to be prepared for that.
Absolutely. And I feel like this just brings us straight into eliminating challenges. And you mentioned, like overthinking, and this could also be like an all or nothing thinking. Like, I mean, maybe you think like, oh, somebody's going to judge me immediately off of the person that I'm with. And I mean, that's kind of like all or nothing. Like, that's not necessarily true. You don't know what the other person is thinking. And I mean, I definitely overthink all of my interactions with people. I'm definitely very bad about that.
Mhm.
And just being like, "Oh my gosh, probably shouldn't have said that," or that came out more rude than I intended for it to be." And like, knew my personality, you would know that's not what my intention was. But if since you don't know me, that just seems like weird.
Yeah, totally.
So it is absolutely. And so let's talk about some of the challenges that you've experienced in college. And this can be like rumination or worry or overthinking or automatic negative thoughts or all or nothing thinking. Then think about some of these challenges that you faced and kind of how you got through them. I mean, I know that they don't necessarily ever completely go away. You're always going to have some sort of challenge in your life, but how do we get through these challenges?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's, like, 2 different challenges. One is that it's really easy in college to just, like, talk way too much and have a really big mouth, and so I think for me, I learned, like, okay, sometimes it's better just to, like, stay out of other people's business and stay out of what other people are doing, and, like, it's just not worth it to get involved. And so that was kind of, like, a funny thing where, like, in boarding school, it was kind of different because everyone was involved with everyone, but it was more so lighthearted because we were, like, 15. And so in college, it's a little more different, things can get a little more serious, so that was really, like, interesting to witness and then also have my own experiences to learn, and so and also just, like, letting people be who they are, I think is really important as well, like, not trying to change anyone, not trying to, like, question why someone maybe is doing something the way that they're doing it, and, like, just accepting and being like, "Okay, I can either accept this and we're cool, or it's totally fine and, like, maybe we're not as close as we should have been or whatever, and I think, like, that those types of relationships just change and ebb and flow, and, like, that's the point of, um, like, figuring out how to be close to people when you're developing. Um
Definitely.
and then yeah. And then the second thing is, like, I remember, like, freshman and sophomore year, I would just if I was, like, having a bad day or whatever, like, it was really easy for me to, like, order food or, like, order clothes or, like, kind of have, like, a dopamine spike from, like, just kind of getting something, like, sugary or, like, getting, like, french fries, and, like, now I kind of grew out of that, which I'm really grateful for. It just was something where I was like, "Okay, I just don't like, if I'm having a bad day, like, I don't need to, like, immediately get ice cream." Like, I don't know, it's not, like, gonna necessarily make me feel better. It was so funny because I remember, like, my sophomore year, I, like, broke up with my ex-boyfriend, and I went downstairs, and I was at home for some reason in Chicago. I think it was maybe, like, right before sophomore year, and, I was going to get, like, a carton of ice cream, my dad's cooking in the kitchen, and he's like, "No." And I'm like, "What?" He's like, "No, don't do it," or whatever, and he's, like, an extremist, so it was kind of funny, but I like, it kind of stuck with me, and I was like, "Honestly, so true," so I went on a run instead and, like, saw the lake and, like, called some friends and, like, called my mom, and I just felt so much better than, like, kind of doing the thing that's, like and, like, best believe, like, I eat ice cream whenever I want to and, like, whenever I feel like it,
Absolutely.
but it's such a different, like, experience when you're like, "Okay, I'm particularly, like, already in a low zone or a low mood, and, like, I know this thing is gonna make me feel lower." And sometimes you're like, "Okay, the ice cream is, like, all I want and need right now," and so you're gonna have the best time, but, like, for me, it was, like, a consistent thing that I was like, "This isn't necessarily, like, how I want, like, food to how I wanna use food and, like, how I want, like"
Your
I don't
relationship with foods.
yeah, I just, like, didn't it would just, like, didn't feel necessary anymore at a certain point. So that was kind of interesting that I just kind of, like, not even consciously or, like, cognizantly worked through, but just over time, I was able to be, like, put my kind of stress or whatever else I was doing in life into something like exercise, into something like hanging out with friends, into something like taking a deep breath on the couch and watching TV, like, something that I felt like was just a little bit healthier for me in the moment, um, and those habits kind of took time to practice, but it was worth it in the end.
Absolutely. I feel like that also speaks so much to, like, how the mentors in your life can truly affect you by just saying, like, one word. Like, I mean, you might not see it at the time. It might not be like when your dad originally told you no, you might just be like, "Well, I'm gonna do this anyway."
Totally.
But then you start to think and you're like, "Maybe he was right." Like,
Yeah,
they is such an
exactly.
important person in your life and such an important mentor, and like, it's almost like you start to think like, "Why did he say that?
Totally,
What
like,
is
parents
his reason?"
want yeah, I mean, parents want what's best for you, and, like, my parents they're definitely, like, more they have their lines, they're more harsh with the way that they say things, and that's kind of what's worked for me, and so I don't even take it personally because 'cause I'm just like, that's what they grew up with, and that's how they communicate, um, and so it's always kind of like I make it humorous, and I think it's funny at the end of the day. Some people would be like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe that happened to you," and I'm like, I mean, honestly, like, I should have gone on a run instead. He was right, like, I think it's like and so and also, like, when you are dealing with something, like, kind of traumatic or upsetting, like, having, like, the physical aspect of, like, letting it move through your body is, like, so much better than, like, sitting and, like, eating chocolate. So, I think that, it's nice, like, when your parents are looking out for you, even if it feels uncomfortable in the moment.
Absolutely. I feel like just having this conversation with you and hearing, like, all of your thoughts and, I mean, honestly, all of your ideals, like, you are so much more put together than I was my senior year of college. I'm still such a mess, honestly. I literally graduated last year, and, like, I still don't have my crap together, but it's just one of those things where, like, I can hear you talk about all of these things, and you're so intuitive in everything that you say, and, um, I'm just thinking back, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh." I wasn't
No,
right.
college is a messy time for sure. I think it's hard. Again, you're developing and the funny thing about college is you don't even realize you're developing until you look back and you're like, "Ooh, that was tough. I shouldn't have done that." And like, you're trying to like reconnect with people where you're like, "Oh my God, I wish I would have handled this differently. I'm so sorry." And blah, 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 and like whatever. And that's just part of it as well. It's just like growing and learning and like the learning curve is not easy and it's not fun sometimes, but it's totally worth it in the end. And I think that's the point of college. Like I don't think the point of college is necessarily to like get honors or get, like, some crazy GPA and an amazing degree. It's, like, a combination. It's, like, a holistic you should come out as, like, more of a holistic person than when you came in. So it needs to be about, your academic life and your academic success, but also just, like, were you a good person? Did you try? Like, what did you get involved with? Um, and, like, all these types of things that are sometimes not as, like, recognized on paper.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of times college students are very focused on the things that look good on paper, and especially if they're trying to go to some schooling post-grad, and I mean, honestly, a bachelor's degree just isn't the norm anymore. Like, a higher education is the norm, which a
Totally.
bachelor's degree used to be higher education. But now I feel
Totally.
like it's just so normal that those things on paper are important and that's what people focus on. But you're so right. I mean, I would love to look back at college and be like, I can truly say that I was a good person and a good friend. And those things are extremely important as well, and they really shape who you are as a person.
Yeah.
I feel like senior year just kind of brings all of that into perspective because you are preparing to leave college. You're preparing for the outside world. And, like while you're in college, you're just in such a little bubble. And you can look back and be like, oh my gosh, my freshman year, I did this to this person, or I said this about this person. Like, but they're a genuinely good person, and I should probably that's a friendship that I wanna keep. And so, you can kind of, like, get that perspective and say, like, if I wanna be friends with this person outside of college and post-grad and living like, doing a long distance friendship, like, I need to take steps in order to make that happen. And I feel like those things are so important even though you don't see them on paper. And while that friend might not help you go anywhere, but they're just a good friend.
Yeah, completely. Yeah, and it's so important. I think like college needs to do a better job recognizing like why people are living their lives anyway and like what's the purpose of life and like why is it even relevant to like have a balance and like why does that matter? And I think that that's not something that's like super ingrained into college curriculum.
Absolutely. I don't think it is at all.
No. Yeah.
I mean, I definitely didn't take any classes on anything like
Yeah, Brown has a class called like I think it's like How to Be Happy or something. It's called like the happiness class. It's like
Mhm.
Brown has a few things like that, but I still think that there's that like societal pressure that always creeps in, regardless of if you're like at a chill school, or like in a chill program like me's like in English or
Yeah.
it depends.
But it's also like, I mean, a lot of students have jam-packed schedules. They don't have time for extra credit classes or like I have one friend who did a double major and added a minor.
That's a
And
lot.
exactly. And she didn't have any time to take any of those fun classes that you could
Yeah.
take in college. I had another friend who took a class on wine tasting.
That's cute. Yeah, that's cute. Yeah, I'm definitely friend B. I'm not
Yeah.
the A person. But that's what works for me.
But also, that's a part of being in college. Like, you should be able to have fun and experience these different
Yeah,
things while you're there because once you leave, you're not going to be able to get those things anymore.
completely. Yeah.
But it is so expensive. And so I think that that's another aspect to school and why people don't want to take these extra classes that might not go towards their graduation.
Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, electives do count towards hours. And I don't know if this is how it works at every university, but at mine, we had to have 120 hours to graduate, and there had to be like this many hours towards your minor, this many hours towards your major, and then this many hours needed to be in the upper level classes.
Mhm.
It was kind of broken up, but at the same time, freshman year, I was trying to get in, like, I was trying to get as far ahead as I could. I was
Yeah.
thinking about all of the elective classes that I could be taking then,
Yeah.
instead of, like, waiting until my senior year and then being like, "Oh, well, I need all 4,000 level classes that are senior level classes. I don't have any
Mhm.
time to take a wine
Yeah.
class or a yoga class."
Yeah. No, it's funny actually the opposite experience. Brown is very much like come in and take whatever you want. And so I was like in anthropology classes and like Africana studies classes and sociology and like random things that I just are not really I mean, kind of English is connected to everything in my opinion. So they're all technically connected to my major in some way or another, but like not that they were requirements. And then it kind of got to the point where I was like, "Oh, this year I'm taking like the freshman year, I'm taking English 100, the freshman year English class that I never took and avoided until just now." Um,
Yeah.
so that's kind of funny. So I'm actually like trying to work on being a more like, what are my longer term goals instead of, like, what is right in front of me and, like, what do I actually, like, think I could do that would, like, set me up for best success, but then also be happy in the moment and be excited in the moment, and so that balance is something that I will be taking with me post-college so that, like, I'm not spending my first college years being like, "Woo, nothing matters. I'm so happy and chill and, pass fail and everything," and then towards the end, you're like, "Oh, okay, now I'm, like, making up for that," and, like, nothing in a major way, but, like, in minor ways where you're like, "Oh, okay, I gotta balance a bit more."
Definitely. Oh, I feel like it was the opposite at my school because you take all of the classes that you need, and then your senior year is your, like, easiest year.
Yeah,
Because at that point, you're like, "Well, I have everything. I just need to reach my hours, so now
yeah,
I can take whatever I want." That's why all of my friends last year were in all these silly, fun classes, and, I mean, that's so fun and exciting, but I switched my major 3 times, so
got it.
I
Yeah,
wasn't done.
totally, totally, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I get like college is just a time to experience all of the things that you can experience while also focusing on these extremely important goals and outcomes. And it's hard to find that balance,
Yeah, completely.
especially when you're 18 years old. I mean, your brain doesn't even fully develop until you're 25.
Yeah,
So,
100%. Yeah.
I mean, that's just, I think that we should push college back a couple years, but that's opinion. Because how are you supposed to pick at 18 years old what you wanna do for the rest of your life?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's why, like, it's important to do as many things as you can and try as many things out, and, like, that's why internships are so important, and it's not because it's, like, optics or some fancy internship, it's more so just to, like, try and just see what you don't like, and that's, like, the number one thing.
Definitely. Absolutely. So, Sky, do you have any final thoughts that you wanna share with our listeners today?
Um Honestly, just, like, have fun and try to, like, keep things chill as much as you can. And I know it sounds, like, stupid to be like, "Oh my gosh, everything's so serious all the time," and so many things are serious, then when you can take certain things lighthearted or just chill out, then I think that's the best way, and, like, um, really thinking about, like, how you can not get into those, like, hothead zones and just feel calm throughout the day and, like, learn your type of strategies, that make you feel happy and excited and also, like, chill you out and give yourself grace.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for being here. I'm so
Thank
happy that we got to have this conversation, and I hope that somebody listens to it and is like, this is everything that I needed to hear.
Yeah, you'll be fine. College is hard, but they'll be fine.
Exactly. Well, thank you all so much for listening, and come back next week for another episode on the Hope Matrix on campus.
Thank you all for listening to the Hope Matrix on Campus podcast. I hope to have provided you with actionable insights and a framework that you can use to start activating higher hope in your life today. And don't forget that hope is measurable and teachable. This program is designed to assist you in learning about hope, but it should not be used for medical advice, counseling, or other health-related services. I, Fred, the Shine Hope Company, and myself, Avery Peel, do not endorse or provide any medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. I am not a medical doctor. The information provided here should not be used for the diagnosis or treatment of any medical condition and cannot be substituted for the advice of physicians, licensed professionals, or therapists who are familiar with your specific situation. Consult a licensed medical professional or call 911 if you're in need of immediate assistance, and be sure to know the crisis hotline 988 if you are in need of support. We are better with hope. Please feel free to check out theshinehopecompany.com, where we list all of our resources around how to hope. We have a lot of free programs for how to hope, including the 5-day challenge, our hope infographic with a lot of skills that showcase how to hope, and articles of how to incorporate hope in your life. We have the Hope Beat Weekly, which is a weekly newsletter that shares strategies for hope. We have my Shine Hope story template, so you can write your own Shine Hope story today. Also, my Shine Hope hero, so we can share what our heroes are doing to activate hope in our lives. And this is especially good with youth, so they can start looking up to people that have overcome similar challenges to them and seeing how these heroes use the Shine Hope framework. We have a Hopeful Minds for Teens program and Hopeful Minds Overview Educator Guides. We have a new evidence-based college course so you can activate hope on the college campus. There are programs in the workspace, overview courses, 90-minute courses for learning the what, why, and how to hope. What I want you to know about hope is it's a skill you've got to practice to become more hopeful. It's easy to fall into despair and helplessness when we deal with challenges in life, and it takes intentional work and practice to get to hope. And yet it is always possible. So no matter what life brings, keep shining hope. Thanks so much for listening, and have an awesome day.